Welcome to the Navik Gaming Podcast, where it is our mission to explore the business and future of video games. We bring together the industry's brightest builders, investors, and thinkers to keep a pulse on current events, dissect emerging trends in games, share lessons learned, and have a great time. This podcast is also part of Navik's growing ecosystem, which ranges from free and premium research to consulting and advisory services. For more information, visit www.navik.co. This episode is sponsored by our partners at CleverTap Gaming. CleverTap Gaming is the all-in-one platform that enables game studios and publishers to create personalized player experiences. It's the only solution that provides a real-time understanding of player actions and integrates lifecycle marketing, live ops, and remote configuration into a holistic experience. In other words, you can maximize engagement, retention, and monetization through real-time segmentation and targeted offers. And you can run live ops campaigns with A/B testing, push notifications, in-app messaging, and much more. To discover how CleverTap Gaming can best serve your games team, simply visit clevertap.com/gaming or check out the details in the show notes. And with that, let's jump into the episode.
Hello, and welcome to the Navik Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Niko Vuori. We have a great episode for you today. It is no secret that Web3 gaming had a bit of a down year in 2023. Many studios had to shut down, and venture funding was very hard to come by. But where some see a valley of despair, others see opportunity. Our guest today falls in the latter category, the optimistic opportunist. Our guest is Steve Wade. He is the founder and CEO of Midnight, which is scooping up talented Web3 studios that have run out of funding in order to go after multiple opportunities at the same time with AA games, which we'll talk about later, as well as building what they call a deconstructed MMO called Evergreen, which is intended to house a whole variety of game activities and gameplay types across a portfolio of games within the MMO itself, from fashion games, casino nights, sports games. That's obviously a lot to take on. And so Steve is here, and he's going to help unpack what his ambitious vision means in real life. Steve, welcome to the pod.
Fantastic. It's great to be here. I've been a big fan of Navik for many years. So this was, when you reached out, I was like, oh, this is a bit of a treat. Like, these guys are experts and they're asking me. I made it. This is it.
All right. Well, this is the pinnacle. It can only go down from here.
Right.
No, I'm kidding, Steve. So with all of that out of the way, let's get right into it. And so the first question I always ask our guests, especially ones who have an interesting background like yours, is what brought you into Web3? So tell us a little bit about your background and what was your journey down the rabbit hole?
Yeah. Well, you don't start small using Web3 in the first sentence, right? That's great for all the game companies, right? That now shy away from Web3. I think you have to be careful with Web3 nowadays, right? There is a bit of noise in the industry, and Midnight or Navik, we have a platform, right? And so I think, how do we bring calmness to Web3 and cut through the noise? So again, thanks for having me be here. My background in Web3, I would say, started a long time ago. I was an esports player in 1997, Pacific Shard, PvP winners, numerous years in a row, Siege Perilous and Ultima Online. What I did is I started turning my winnings into sales. I would go to eBay. I was like, oh, well, I won this castle or I won this gold. And I would sell on eBay. And then I realized people are just buying gold. Like, why am I going, taking the time to go to these tournaments, lug my massive computer at the, because they were very heavy back in the late 90s. I can just set up all these bots. And so I was 15. I had 7 AOL phone lines attached to my parents' house in the basement.
Wow.
And
you were one of those
bots.
kids, huh? You were one of those kids. I knew kids like you.
We were very lucky to be very close to a hub. So my 56K modem actually hit 56K, and it was fantastic. And I was the first to go to university in my family, and it was all because of games. And I've never I've never got big onto blockchain and the techno babble behind it, but the idea that Web3 is the next evolution of the creator economy, that's very exciting to me because I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't able to participate inside of these ecosystems. And so if I think about where I've came from the late 90s, we eventually pivoted. eBay shut us down in 2002. We're like, oh well, I'm just starting university. What am I going to do? That was my source of income. I had to become a real company. And so we reached out to a couple groups to do community management, and we ended up doing community management for the World of Warcraft Alpha. They were our first real client, World of Warcraft, nice. And Guild Wars. So that kind of made us a real thing. We were trucking along, working on these large titles, and then Yahoo Japan in 2005, 2006, they decided that they want to start publishing free-to-play games in the U.S. I had just been to a game conference in Austin, Texas, where probably two of the smartest women in the gaming I've ever met, Sue Bold and Cindy Armstrong, were in this panel saying, this is the death of premium games. This is the death of subscriptions. You need to be doing free to play. And I'm thinking well, my entire income comes from subscription-based MMOs. I better jump on this. And so I ended up selling my company at the time to Yahoo Japan, which became Area Games here in the US, which eventually sold to Gamigo. And so we, kind of brought free-to-play game publishing to the US. Sorry, but it was fun at the time.
Sorry, not sorry.
That's right. No, it was a wonderful experience. I remember just sitting with a lot of the free to play game people in the beginning, having these lunch dates in Silicon Valley, just talk how do we get interviews on IGN, right? How do we get people to talk about us because it was such a new model, and now look what it's become, right? Digital items it's a $1 billion industry and a lot of gray markets. And so after I moved on from Area Games, I started every Asian free-to-play game company that came to the US, which came through one of my consulting firms or my publishing practice. And there was one company, PlaySpan, I don't know if you're familiar with it. They were the first publisher-sponsored marketplace to start trading digital items, right? So it was before blockchain, but it was still the idea that your items are valuable. You should be able to have some kind of agency over them. And so we started doing that. And 2008, 2009, Visa ended up acquiring it for $240 million. So it wasn't a bad exit for the investors. But what we saw was it was a little too early, and it was also very difficult to get the big guys. Activision didn't want their users to trade with EA's users at the time, but all the mid-sized publishers were on board, right? So we converted Dungeons and Dragons Online and Lord of the Rings Online to free-to-play, Mew Online. And so I would have my sword in one game and I would sell it for currency, or I'd trade it for another game I wanted to move to. And we saw it was very helpful for retention, more so than anything else we did, because people play one main game. And even back then, we would have someone in an MMO, they play for 6 or 9 months, and they might jump and play something else, but the fact that they could take something with them, it just became quite more valuable. And so I've always loved that idea. And, I jumped into investment banking after I sold my third company, 7 years ago, which was another video game publisher. And we started doing a lot of Web3 capital raises. And I was introducing these guys as veterans. There's two guys in their garage, right? And we were raising these absurd amounts of money for them. And I'm thinking, well, if they're veterans in the game space, I'm a dinosaur or even more a fossil. But I love, real money transactions. I love the fact that people can participate and the fact they have better opportunities. Like crypto Web3 is hope to so many people. And I would be doing a disservice if I didn't get back into it and try to give people the same opportunities I had. So I thought, I left gaming, I left investment banking, I left investment banking to get back into gaming, and it's been fun. So I think we're leaning into two heavy things, which I didn't like to hear, and which I'm trying to push is I think participation is the key word, right? It's not really ownership in a lot of these ecosystems. It's you get to participate in an ecosystem that you get to spend your time. And then a lot of the companies that were giving us pitch decks, when I asked them about their business models, like how they were going to make money, how the token holders would make money, they kept on using the word fun. And hey, fun's a great word. Everyone should be playing fun, but fun is such a hand wavy word in Web3 that I really try to push down on it. And I think the right word is fulfillment. And if you have a play, there's different categories and taxonomy of users. So people could be there for fun. People there could be there to earn money. People could be there for esports to be competitive. And you have 15 different groups. And as long as you can find fulfillment for combinations or various groups, I think that's the key for Web3. And that's why I get back into it, to bring participation and fulfillment.
Fantastic. I mean, what a background. This is why I always like to start with this. And a lot of the time, Web3 has been about opportunity. So some of the folks who are coming in a little later, to your point, there's a little sensitivity around the word Web3 now. But I always love the stories where it really truly comes from a place of, personal experience. In your case, selling on eBay for 5 years before you got shut down, and it's really surprising. Maybe it shouldn't be surprising, but so many of our guests, there's some connection to World of Warcraft, which perhaps shouldn't be,
right?
Yeah, perhaps shouldn't be that surprising. So I do love how you've got this kind of through thread all the way through your career, coming into Web3, and I love the word fulfillment. As well.
I hope it resonates throughout the rest of all your podcasts around Web3, because I think it's the right word.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'll remember for sure.
I think about it. If you could talk about MMOs, World of Warcraft, Ultima Online was my first, so that'll be my first one, right? But we'd investment banking, I would see a lot of pitch decks, and like all the pitch decks were, searching for gold, right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone wanted to get rich, and like that's how we're doing it. And I'm like, well, Web3, multiverses, metaverses, like it's so much more than just having a company and 4xing your token in 3 months and pumping and dumping. It's like the people that play these games, like there is history, there's love, there's friendship, like there's quiet achievements of like ordinary people in these games doing extraordinary things, and like those stories are fantastic. Like I could recant stories of like PvP experiences in games from 20 years ago and have fun, and I think that's what matters, right? Those people's stories.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, well, that's a perfect segue then into what you're actually doing. Great background. Yeah. I understand why you've got into Web3, but Midnight, which is the company, what is it and what are you doing with Midnight?
Yeah, so there's, I guess, two lines of product there. So Midnight itself, it's a game publisher, a premium game publisher, AA games. I think you could say we're the category leader in Web3 for premium AA games. Most people are heavily focused on free-to-play or mobile, where we're PC console games. So that's what we're doing. We're building from original IPs. We're licensing IPs. We're looking to find companies that want to join what we're doing and publish those games. And through that, we're building a product called the Evergreen, which is our companion app. So, we mentioned World of Warcraft. That's probably got the granddaddy of all companion apps that's still alive. It's a social hub. So when people think of MMOs, they think of, a persistent world and social features. In our world, we're kind of getting rid of the persistent hub, the persistent world, and we're keeping the social hub. And so we're quite excited for that. So publishing premium games and linking them all together through a mobile companion app. That's the two things we're doing.
All right. Well, it sounds so simple, but obviously there's a lot to unpack under the hood right there. So why don't we start with just kind of where you guys are at operationally? You already have multiple studios, is my understanding, working on some of these things. How many studios do you have operating currently? Where are they? And how big are the teams that you work with?
Yeah. So we have our own internal platform studio, although I hate the word platform because we're building an MMO. We're very narrative driven. Actually, there's a red flag for me when I was doing investment banking. Whenever platform. A game studio had said like, hey, we're becoming a platform company now, I'm like, oh, you're really in trouble. Yeah. But we do have a platform team. We do that in the US and in Indonesia. We actually acquired a business. We acquired a company called Square 2. And that's the basis for our mobile companion. Square 2 was a fantastic company. They raised $6 million in VC funding, $40 million in top line revenue. They had what we would refer to in Web3 as 4.7 million registered wallets. And they were doing play to earn before play to earn was cool. The thing is, they were doing it in hyper casual mobile games, and hyper casual mobile games took a big hit, and that's why we were able to, swoop in and acquire them. But it was really cool because like, people always say like, how do you onboard people to Web3? And they were already doing it because if you're playing solitaire, you're playing bubble shooter, and it was these mom groups, lots of moms. They were playing solitaire, playing bubble shooters, and getting diapers and formula. They did 1.3 million transactions on eBay. Like this was a great company. Like it's a real thing. And so we acquired them as the basis as our core, right? So it's like 250,000 daily active users. It's tried and true tech. So that team is the first one. That's our platform team. But of course, we need real games, and we want to make PC console games. And so we have a studio in LA. They're doing 2 games. We have a studio in the UK. They're doing 1 game currently, and we have a studio in Thailand that's doing 1 game. Happy to chat about the games in general, the studios, but we want to do more, right? So the idea is eventually we're doing 1 game a month. There's some great Dubway studios who've done, I think Team 17 did 26 games last year. I think Curve Digital probably did 60. So it's sustainable, but it's going to take a while to ramp up to that. So I think what we'll probably end up doing is maybe 4 to 5 games every 6 months, and look at seasons until we can get to that ramp where it's 1 a month.
Yeah. And obviously, you'll need more studios. I alluded in my intro that the fact that you are swooping in and you're taking opportunity of the fact that there has been a little consolidation and running out of money, to put it mildly, in the Web3 space. So, what is your criteria for acquiring teams, acquiring games? What kind of size transaction are you looking to do? Is it opportunistic, or do you have a strategy for here's how we're going to look for these companies actively, or are they're going to come to you? Yeah. A lot of questions in there, but really it's about what is your criteria for acquiring teams and games? How are you going about it? Yeah.
So I think if you think of 2023 as the gaming year of layoffs, and I think we're already at 50% of the layoffs from last year just in the first part of 2024, I do think this is the year that either companies will be shut down or acquired. And I think there's going to be a lot of small scale acquisition, especially in the Web3 space and gaming. We have looked at 7 companies so far, and it's, we're only halfway through February. Yeah. We say, we're like a typical VC fund where we say no a lot more than we say yes. There was only 1 company that I wanted to say yes on. We put a bid in. We did not win the bid because, I'm still kind of cheap. But it was the Awesome Knots creator. I don't know if you remember the game Awesome Knots. They went through a process and they were sold. I don't know who to, but I think we lost the bid by just a skosh. But there's a lot of opportunities, whether it's a really cool brand, and I think there's a lot of brands in Web3 that they peaked, they got a lot of audience, but then they couldn't monetize that audience, right? They didn't know how to make a game, or they didn't know how to create a technology around it. So I think there's 3 things: like we're interested in IP, we're interested in teams, we're interested in technology. I just had a call yesterday with some folks at Disney. Like, there's an entire team that has been laid off, and I'm like, why doesn't someone just put money and make them into a studio, right? There's so many benefits of having people that's already worked together. This is starting from scratch. And so we're looking at various different ways to work on things. The scale of our games are, double A, what I say. And I think there's probably some education for even people in the game industry what double A games are. Double A is somewhere between indie and triple A. And it really comes down to budgets. I think a AAA game starts at about 60 million nowadays with inflation. And so our games are far less than 60 million. We're probably in the, let's say, 500,000 to 3.5 million right now. And then for sequels and DLC, maybe we'll put more money up to 5 million because we'll chase success if a game does well. But most of our games are meant to die. The game will, in traditional sense, double A games, they have like a 3 to 6 month window where they pop and then sales kind of flounder. We think with Web3 and our companion app, we can extend that 8 to 12 months. And so we're pretty excited about our model. But yeah, we're trucking along. So if anyone has a game out there and, a budget under 5 million, we're interested in having a look. I mean, look at the success, right, of Pal Worlds, right? $7.5 million, 300 million sales. So double A games, 1 in 100, you could get a blockbuster. Maybe 1 in 30, you get a hit. But for the most part, you get 1, 2, or 3x games, right? So we're at DICE right now here in Vegas. I've chatted with a couple double A publishers, and they're all throwing off cash. I mean, it's not huge amounts of money, but 5 million, they're throwing off $1 million. That's not bad.
That's not bad. I mean, it's real money. For sure.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I love how, this is why I wanted to have you on the pod, is I love how clear-headed you are in your thesis and how different your thesis is to so many others in the space. Now, we have seen some kind of Web3 roll-up publisher type pitches. None of them have panned out. Why do you think yours is going to pan out?
Well, that's a good question. I've seen a lot of I'm not going to call anyone out, but like passports are a big thing, right? Everyone is like, hey, this is my passport, right? And so Midnight has a Baja Blast Passport protocol unit, right? We can connect to 40,000 games. But like essentially what people are saying is like, hey, I have this old Web 2 Facebook login, and that's going to be, how we roll up all these different games. And it's a lot of like really tiny web games that people don't really want to play. Like there's no fulfillment in that, right? People are saying, oh, we've got a bunch of games I call them hippometrics. I think most people refer to them as vanity metrics. And you can have a bunch of vanity metrics games in your portfolio, but if no one's actually playing those games, it's not that interesting. We don't need a lot of users for our model, but we need, concurrently, every game that we publish should be able to do 200 to 800 concurrent users. And, that doesn't sound like a terrible lot, but once you get to 26 games that can support that, that's great. Because that's people actually playing a meaningful amount of time. Another thing that I think is different or unique to Midnight is, when we were raising capital for our seed round, in the heyday, people would always ask, where's the value flow? Does it flow to the equity? Does it flow to the token? And I'm, kind of the Warren Buffett. I was like, don't get caught up in the equity. Don't get caught up in the moment. It's a business. You're investing into a business. If the games do well, both will rise. Our business model is like the premium side covers our, the lights stay on because we're selling games. So we know that business. The Web3 side is, icing on the cake to us because we're not taking a lot of money from the Web3 side. That's all given to the users. And that's something unique to us where we don't rely on Web3 being our business model. And I think any company that is relying on Web3 being their business model, they're going to find out fairly quickly, like we found out in PlaySpan 2009, that it's very hard to sustain, right? If you're looking at, 1 million wallets, you need 16 million players by free-to-play metrics. That's a lot of players for oftentimes little crappy games. And, we have a model where, if we do a double A game, we only need 50,000, 175,000 people to buy it. That game's profitable and we're profitable. I'll take a hit if someone buys 1 or 2 million units. That's fantastic, right? I'm not going to turn that down. But like we are made to be a predator where we can go out, acquire businesses. We know the numbers. We get a game. We have niche users we target, and it's an exciting time. So I think we just have a fundamental understanding of how the games business works versus a lot of Web3 people getting into it. There's a project that came out in December. It's the closest thing that I've seen, to our companion app. 300,000 users. They raised 9 million. Their token pre-sale, and then I'm like reading their white paper, and there's no understanding of how the games business works. And chase my britches a little bit, but they're fantastic marketers. Like there's genius level marketing in some of this Web3, and that's one of the things. Like there's so much noise. How do you cut through it, and how do you like bring real games, real opportunities to people? And that's what we're focused on Midnight.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, games as a business.
Yeah, who would have thought?
What a crazy idea! They have to make money, really?
That's right.
So no, I love the fact that you're focusing on the games as a business, and it's a numbers game. I'm a former CPA in a previous life, and ex-Zynga PM, as my longtime listeners will know. I love talking about my Zynga days. But yeah, numbers, like the numbers don't lie, and when the numbers work out, the numbers work out. It doesn't matter what the game is or what the studio is or where they're based.
That's right.
If they can ship a game and they can make more money than it costs to make, well, that's a good business. So fun fact there. Profit matters.
When were you at Zynga? Were you at the heyday when they were sharing on Facebook before?
Yeah, okay. Mafia Wars on MySpace.
Mafia Wars.
Yeah, I still remember those days. And then the launch of Farmville on Facebook Canvas, and then the rocket ship that followed. So yeah, those were fun times, exciting times, very formative years. Everybody has their formative years in the games industry somewhere. Okay, well then I'm going to ask the obvious question, which is you haven't raised a ton of money, I don't think, and I couldn't find out a lot about how you're funding this thing. So I'm going to ask you just directly, like, how are you financing these acquisitions? I understand the business model, but to get to the volume of games, as you alluded to yourself, you need to ramp up, right? And that takes money and that takes time. And my question is, how are you financing these acquisitions and these activities?
You're exactly right. So the biggest risk to Midnight and the Evergreen project is the initial portfolio, because that's the most capital intensive, right? Before we have a flywheel of games that are, and essentially we're saying it's 8 to 9 games before we can just self-finance. So in order to get to those 8 to 9 games, it does require some capital. We had raised a 6 million seed round. Took us 3 weeks to do it during the heydays, right, of doing it. We got a grant. We had another almost $6 million grant from Forte.io. And then we're currently raising more. I don't know, for better or for worse, we turned away a lot of money in 2022, mostly from L1s and L2s looking for exclusivity. I couldn't buy into the exclusivity. Like, I don't mind making a game on this chain or this chain or this chain, but none of them had seemed like, hey, this is the shining light. This is going to be the winner for games. This is where you need to be, and we'll see where that goes. But we are, we're getting ready to raise another round now. We'll probably do that middle of summer. We're looking at everything from debt financing to our project debt for the games, which is always fun. I did a lot of that in traditional or my previous life as a banker. We'll do equity, and then the fun thing, which is fun for me because we spent a bunch of money with Deloitte and like 4 different law firms, is setting up offshore finance and to do a token. So our token will be launched on April 1st, April Fool's Day. I can't think of a better day to do a gaming token.
What a day for a Web3 token launch.
Yeah, it's just like you could ask for a better day.
What's the token called, by the way?
Echo token.
Echo, okay.
Yeah,
I thought there might be some tie-in to April 1st, but no.
No tie-in.
Can't think of it for Echo.
Yeah, we went with Echo because the way we look at the token is it's player stories matter. I think we want to be a narrative-driven company, and essentially when you play, it's your Echo. It's your digital Echo, and that's where the name came from. And so we're excited to see where that goes.
Fantastic.
And there's a bit of a bull right now, so everyone's quite excited.
Yeah, you're timing it pretty well.
Yeah.
Who knows what April 1st is going to bring? Like, we could have 5 roller coasters in between then and now, but no, you're timing it pretty well. So I had a planned question actually on this, so I'm just going to bring it forward a little bit, which is, you're doing a token sale, and obviously tokens still do work, but obviously they work a lot less effectively than they did back in the heyday, 2021, late Q4 2021. If you launch a token then, you could raise $100 million without, batting an eye. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on, have you evaluated the token raise market recently, and what are your expectations for a token sale?
Yeah, so I think if you look in the last 24 hours, crypto VC funding has climbed higher for the first time in 2 years, where it's past the previous quarter. So there is a bit of a bull where people are getting excited, right? The price of Bitcoin is up, so everything rises. Everyone's happy. All the alts are up. So VCs are starting to put cash back into it. I think the idea or the days of here's 2 guys in the garage with a PowerPoint presentation. You really need a product. You really need those I keep on calling them vanity metrics. Like your socials have to be hot. People have to be able to touch and feel things now, because there were just 90-something with 91% of NFT game projects are dead. 1 in 4 VC funded Web3 game companies in trouble. Which reach out to me. We're always looking to help. It's rough out there, and I don't want to paint a razor picture that Midnight is a bastion for hope. Although I like to think that we are. It's tough, right? It is tough out there. Crypto sales in particular, we've been planning for a while. There's not a lot of I would say pedigreed Web3 companies like us that have backgrounds in gaming, who understand how to not only make money for the company, but make sure the users see benefit. Which is maybe that's something different than most companies do, where we're not here for a short time, we're here for a long time, and that's fun. So we've said how do I explain it? So last year it was difficult. This year people are competing for business again, and so it's definitely refreshing. I've kind of pushed a few projects. I was like, if you can get a token out this year, I think you should. I don't know if it's going to be $100 million raise, but for us, we're probably looking at around 20 million, somewhere 10 to 20, and that's enough for us. We're AA games. We have small budgets. The biggest one that I saw recently, which I obviously am a massive fan of, I'm an investor, so I probably should say that, is Shrapnel. They launched their token in November to great success. They've set the bar for Web3 games, in my opinion. It's fantastic. I think there is opportunities out there if you're a pedigreed team that's building something versus here's a rug pull, right? I think the rug pulls are probably done, but I think the real teams that are really leaning into crypto and allowing users to participate, I think there's opportunities out there, either from investors, from doing token sales, getting all your KOLs aboard to sell to users, working at the right exchanges. There's I could list I'm not going to list them, but there's obviously tier 1 exchanges, tier 2, tier 3, launch pads. You just want to make sure if you've not done it before, work with an advisor. Or follow someone else's playbook, right? Look at some other companies that's already done it and just do what they did. Because I think there is a path to success in this that is going to make sense for the next year. Maybe the next 6 months, like you say. Who knows what's going to happen in April?
Yeah,
but I think it is a viable path nowadays. But it's not the end all. In my mind, it is just a tool. It's another tool, right? Mm-hmm. Debt, VC, tokens. Maybe we do a SPAC, right? Maybe SPACs come back when there's a lot of money.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you said rug pulls are probably done. I think quite the opposite. The next 6 months, I think, with the rise in the prices, especially Bitcoin and all the alts following suit, you're going to see all the ruggers come back.
Maybe let me rephrase that.
Try and make their quick buck. Like whenever there's money to be made, there's going to be ruggers and scammers.
So I 100% agree with that. What I meant was I don't think VCs will be investing in rug pulls anymore.
I see.
Yeah, but I think there will be projects that pop up. Like I said, I think the one in December is a bit of a rug pull because they have no understanding of games, but users are excited, right? And people want to be excited. There's so much hope.
People want to believe.
Hey, yeah, that's right. You should get that. I want to believe.
I want to believe. Mulder and Scully.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so I had a question about audience for these games. You're doing AA games, and I totally understand the logic of why. It's the business of games. It's costs are less than the revenues, hence profit. Fun little model there. But who's the audience for these games? Do you have a particular genre in mind? Are you genre agnostic? And is it more for the average person who knows nothing about crypto and Web3, or is it for crypto enthusiasts, or is it both?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the Evergreen companion app, I think that's where most of the Web3 users are going to live, because it's free. You don't have to put $5 to $40 up front to play the game. But you can farm other games, and the Web3 users will be able to sell items they create to Web2 users in the games. And the games themselves, we're game agnostic because that's the fun, right? So if we're doing 12 games a year, it should be a hardship if you don't play all 12 games. Maybe you play 4 games, right? Like maybe you like the fighting game, maybe you like the fishing game, maybe you like the Barbie dress-up game, but you hate FPS games. But there's an item inside of that FPS game that you really want for your Barbie dress-up game. Well, now, because of that hardship, there's a built-in marketplace. Like now people who don't play the FPS game, now they can sell you whatever that black t-shirt is or something. And so that's what I love about MMOs, that it's these virtual worlds where you have people intermingling with people that really wouldn't mingle in the first place, but now they kind of have to. So like we encourage interaction through having different genres of games. The games themselves are niche, right? These are AA games. Our first game's a 2D pixel brawler. That scales mostly male, average age 27. It's got a TAM of 119 million, right? So it's not a massive game, but it's one game. Our next game is kind of in that kind of like Overcooked chore simulators, right? So it skews mostly female, younger, probably at 24, less TAM, maybe 90 million. So we're not looking at major game categories, but if we keep on adding a bunch, right? So like we had 10 games, now we're at $1 billion, and it's different type of people. They're forced to mingle, and that's how you create a real circular ecosystem, in my opinion, circular economy, rather.
Interesting. And and they do need to know about crypto, though. I just want to understand the Evergreen.
No. Sorry. So the games themselves, the Web2 games,
I understand. The games I understand are just Web2. They're just games, and then there's the transfer value trading marketplace aspect that goes between the games. But does that not imply that the players, even though they're playing their individual games and don't need to know anything about crypto for that, if they want to do the trading, the marketplace piece, then they do need to understand what the Web3 components are?
I'm having a component. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. we expect a large amount of trading to happen in platform, and so they may have to go to the Evergreen app to do a decent amount of the trading or the crafting or how they move items behind. But they're not going to have to worry about their own wallets, right? All that stuff is hidden. We've got our own kind of system that cross wallet across games. What is, I think, most unique is they log into their game. And you think of it as premium. I don't know if you played, Diablo 4, but you plop down $70 for that game, and then there's like the item store. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, do you want to spend $15 more to get this horse skin? And Midnight's games, the plus version, that horse skin, that's sold by other players. Midnight has taken a stance that we're going to have an item shop in every game. It's a very familiar item shop, and we actually plan the item shop for the first 3 months of live service, and then beyond that is UCG. But we give that to the Web3 users' hands to sell to Web2 users. That's how we're looking to launch on Steam. That's how we're looking to launch in South Korea, because the Web3 doesn't happen inside of the Web2 games themselves. Any of the digital items sold there is purely, it looks as a Web2 game now. Now, I think there could be game-specific crafting materials that they get, and maybe if they're on the app, it's like, hey, you have these materials, they're valuable in other games, or you have these 7 items, you don't play this game, it's worth $700, you should go sell it. It's knowing when to message the user at the right time, but like they're not going to come into these games and we're like, hey, you're going to make a bunch of money. No, it's like, hey, play this game, have fun with it, stay in this game, right? That's one of the things that I think a lot of people got wrong with interoperability when they were, which you don't hear about in the last 6 months. No one talks about interoperability anymore. But the idea was like, hey, well, this is going to jump from this game to this game. And I was like, no, that's the wrong idea. We just did this study with Deloitte, where if someone's in a game, you want to keep them in a game for as long as possible, because that's where they're going to have the most fun. That's where they're going to spend the most money. Now, if they come, they play the game, pop on $5, they play it for 10 hours, they're done with it. You want to be able to move them to the next game. You want to keep them inside your ecosystem. But the idea of moving users around, it's you don't really want to do that. You want them to stay where they're happiest, and then that's where they'll bring their friends and stay a little longer.
Yeah, bring their friends. Actually, that's a great point. Do you have any kind of social hooks built into the games themselves, or are they mostly first person, single player games, or do you have massive brawlers where you've got hundreds of players at the same time?
No hundreds of player brawlers, but okay. Most of our games are multiplayer, 1 to 4 players, maybe 1 to 6. We have some ideas for some single player games, but even the single player games, gaming could be lonely. And I like the idea that you beat a chapter. Telltale did a really good job of this. If you remember Telltale games.
Oh, I love Telltale. Love them.
They just did a Star Trek. Well, not Telltale, but the guys from Telltale. They did Star Trek Resurgence. If you're a Star Trek fan or Telltale fan, I highly recommend that game. It was a lot of fun. But something that Telltale did, which Star Trek Research didn't do, was like after you completed a chapter, someone's like, "Hey, 56% of the people did A. You did B. Yeah. What a weirdo!"
I remember that.
And
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think you can reward things, and you can drop some exclusive loot in single player games, so make people want to go and farm that single player game. But it's all about the experience of the story. So for us, it's more RNG than like, hey, if I play this game 20 times, I know I'm going to be able to farm X materials. Like, if I play this 20 times and I do different things, there's a chance I'll get X material or X item or B achievement. So yeah, we're looking for fulfillment in all of our games. There are a bunch of social hooks. If I think about the companion app, the thing I compare it most to is Pinterest. I think Pinterest is a great way to collect your hobbies. And we've got mini games inside of the app. There people will be able to farm airdrops. There's a crafting system, which I think is the way how we do interoperability and make it successful. But at the same time, here's your friends. This is your friends' items. This is what the NFTs they've destroyed, or this is what they've crafted. This is the game they've done. This is their achievement. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, nice. It sounds like a lot going on in there. So when are you planning on launching?
We're definitely punching above our weight.
Yeah, yes. When is the Evergreen app launching? Obviously, the games will launch whenever they're ready, right? Like you'll just be rolling them out on a regular cadence. Once you hit your stride, you want to do, how many did you say you want to do a month? 1 a month? Is that right?
Ideally, it's 13 games a year. It's 1 a month, and then an extra one in the holidays for whatever we call our holiday fest. Maybe it's
Baker's
Niko Fest.
Baker's dozen of games. That's right. Never heard of that before. Okay, cool.
So that's the goal.
Okay, so that's
first party games. And when we can do more third party.
Yeah. And when do you think you're going to hit that stride?
So we're actually launching our open beta for Evergreen next month.
Oh, cool.
And so it's got 2 mini games. It's got decent amount of social features, and we plan to build it over the summer to when our first 2 games are ready in October. And so people can pre-farm those games for crafting materials, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Pre-farm.
That's right. We embrace bots. We embrace bots by actually giving people bots and like, hey, this is your bot named Niko, right? And Niko can go to different games.
There you go. I like that. Yeah. I like the idea of having my own bot. I was going to say where can if listeners are curious or interested, where can they sign up for the beta? Is there anywhere we can go?
Please come to our Discord, follow us on Twitter, and whatever social network that the marketing team turns on the next week. But it should be first week of March. Android, iOS, Evergreen app. So I think our Twitter is Play Evergreen. I'll throw them in here so you can.
Yeah. We'll put them in the show notes as well. We always put these in the show notes. So cool. We'll make sure we have something there to if people are interested in checking this out. We'll have some links there.
I was actually quite surprised. So when we had raised our initial fund, our investors were like, hey, Steve, no one knows about you. Do something. And I was like, all right, well, we do a PR piece. And Dean at VentureBeak was kind enough to pick us up. And 3,000 people joined our Discord. And for 2 years, we didn't say hello.
Wow, that's crazy. Dean, if Dean's listening, Dean, you have a lot more pull than you should be. You should be out there like asking people to follow you on Twitter and get an NFT for free or something. Dean,
that's right. You do Dean NFTs, right?
Moving numbers. Yeah. Who knew?
Well, here's the crazy thing. So we didn't talk to them for 2 years. We said hello and we turned our Twitter on. More than 10,000 people joined in less than 48 hours.
Wow. Okay.
And so now we're like, it's just, there's definitely built-in audiences for Web3 that are craving for pedigree projects. Mm-hmm. And then, our niche AA games, I think they have built-in audiences already. So I'm definitely excited to see how we mingle them. Right. Yeah. That's been the thing. Like, how do Web3 users and Web2 users chat and, do I have to create 2 different Discords? Like, we don't know yet. We're going to find out.
Yeah. And do they even speak the same language?
That's right.
The Web3 language and the Web2 language in gaming, you would think it's the same because it's games, but actually it's not. There's a lot of cross-talking and using terminology that certainly Web2 folks don't really understand necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of the Web3 language. Every once in a while, like my hip hop is up 40% on the Flop network, and you got a bang bang. I don't know what's going on.
Yes. Okay. So you touched on something which is near and dear to my heart, which is distribution, discoverability, getting your product into the hands of the consumers, the players that you want to get it into the hands of. And no matter how good your games are, no matter how amazing your product is, this applies to any product, it's going to hinge. Its success is going to hinge on finding the right audience or the right audience finding you. So either push or pull. And I ask all of our Web3 guests this because this is such a critical piece of the puzzle. How are you intending on reaching your target audience? You've said you're going to be cross-platform. So let's talk about the platforms you're going to be on and then how you're going to actually find the audience or how they're going to find you.
Yeah. Discoverability, I think Web2, Web3, it's a big issue for games, right? There's so many games being pushed out
hard
now. I wish that some of the platforms would limit, have some kind of their own, filter system, but it's a lot out there. I think we're in a great spot if you look at our top of funnel, even more so than an MMO, right? If we were doing the persistent world MMO, I think that would limit our funnel versus having all these different game types, different demographics, different age ranges, gives us a much broader top of funnel. And I think our niche games, our niche AA games for niche users, they have built-in audiences. Like, we'll be able to find those audiences, I say, fairly easy. Most of the games we're making now with the game developers we're making with, they've already made these games. And so a lot of times it's, I don't want to say a reskin because we're doing more than just a reskin, but like, they've already spent $6 million building this game, this engine. They have a fan base. They've done millions of installs. We're taking that to this niche audience. Like, hey, here's a new spin or here's a new IP. And so I think the Web2 gamer side, we know where those gamers are. We've found them for 2 decades, right? And so I think bringing them on is going to be easy. It's the Web3 users that I actually find challenging. When I was raising our $6 million seed round, I had an investor say, "Look, it's easier to raise $6 million than to get 600 Twitter followers." And I was like, "Oh wow!" And so I think there is
certainly something
to that, right? Yeah, And this goes back to the first thing we talked about. Like, there's a lot of noise in this space. How do you cut through the noise? How do you present yourself as the right person, right? And like, I found that we have marketing groups, we have PR groups, we have community groups, we have in Web3 all these different KOLs and KOL managers, and this is all I guess a couple years ago they were called influencers, now they're called KOLs, which I bite my tongue every time I see it. But that's the main group that I think is the most challenging, because our games themselves, we can find users that want to play Barbie dress-up games, right? We can find users who want to play black bass fishing. We can find users that want to play. Well, I don't want to misread. We're working on an FPS game, kind of a boomer shooter with a major fast food restaurant. So there's some built-in marketing there, right? And I think it's traditionally how a lot of game companies will do it. Like, original IPs are great, but using someone else's IP to boost you up a little bit isn't bad. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of traditional, like, hey, we're going to do paid UA, we're going to do press releases, we're going to make sure that this game gets X amount of wish list, because premium games X wish list translate to X sales. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all foundational business stuff that I think we've got. But I think it's going to be fun, because our games are actual games. It's not like we're trying to put lipstick on a pig and say, come pet my dog. It's like, here's a 2D pixel brawler. You like 2D pixel brawlers? Come play ours.
I mean, makes sense. So if I were to summarize, I just want to make sure I get my understanding right. You feel good and confident about the games themselves, the ability to find those audiences. Many of them have built-in audiences already, doing the tried and true playbook on the wish listing and making sure that you do the right things on these platforms that you clearly know very well. But the wild card is whether you can get folks into the Evergreen companion app and mingling with each other, doing the Web3 things, right, doing the trading. That's really where the magic happens, arguably. That's your deconstructed MMO, of course. But that's the wild card. That's the question mark.
That is that.
In a nutshell.
You couldn't have said it better. I should bring you to our team and you start pitching for me. That's exactly right.
I can be your translator. Okay, but it makes so much sense, and I totally understand. Like, the value really is going to come from that Web3 piece where folks are trading and mingling and having fun together, spending time, being really sticky.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think if you looked at it as a chart, it's like there's a very linear path to growth to 0 to 100 million in revenue just on premium AA game sales. The extra bit, like extra 50, extra 100 million, is on the secondary markets what those people are trading. And then I think there's a third, once you have enough users, like, you become a social network. The companion app is a social network, and so then you get into ad sales and do all the fun stuff that Overwolf's doing. They're an investor, so I have to throw them in. Yeah, they've been on the pod. They haven't been here
on my pod, but they've been with I think Alex Takei's segment.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
They had Overwolf on. So what a great business that is. So let's talk about roadmap. So you're thinking about the token raise that's coming. You've got your beta coming out soon. You've got the summer to build. Doing a lot of things. What's the roadmap look like for the next 12 to 18 months, give or take?
So I would say at the end of 18 months, we should have a more polished companion app. We should have between 4 and 6 games live, and a lot of games hopefully in the pipeline, and an active token. One of the cool things, I think it's cool, for our token in the next 18 months is, you have a lot of single token projects that have done well, but they're highly dependent upon one game's success. I think that's risky. And what we saw in real money transactions, whenever like the price of the WoW token or whatever your MMO choice was, like those would always pop on DLC days, patch days, or new expansions. And at midnight, you have a new game coming every month, right? And so you should see decent pops for that. And I think the fun thing is, like, what I went back to is, like, gamers might not like every game every month. And so you save your resources. Like, well, I don't play this fishing game, so I'm going to skip August. But come September, when that turtle race car game comes out, I'm going to drop all my stuff on that, and then prices go up. So I think it's going to be fun launching content. I get to work in genres of games that I wouldn't normally work on. We're working on a tea time solitaire game that.
Okay,
so I'm excited for it.
Is that a category? I didn't even know that.
Well, I've made it a category. It's like a murder mystery, but I call it tea time solitaire because it's like It reminds me like an Agatha Christie murder mystery. I don't know.
Miss Marple. I love
Miss Marple. Exactly. Oh man, I love Marple. Yeah, she has.
Okay, great.
So Miss Marple has the best piece of advice from any fictional character. I've used it in banking. I've used it in gaming, and she says, "Good advice should always be given, but it's rarely taken."
Oh, that's a good line. I did not know that came from Miss Marple. I've heard it. But I did not know the source of it. So that's Miss Marple. Okay. Well, there you go, listeners. You probably learned something new today.
I haven't thought about Miss Marple in 10 years. That's awesome.
Of course. I loved Agatha Christie. I loved Sherlock Holmes. Like, I loved all the classic, Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot, yeah.
Oh, my goodness me. Those were all so good.
Right. We should chat after it.
For sure. We could geek out on Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes and what have you. Hound of the Baskervilles. Oh, what a classic that is. My English literature undergraduate degree coming into focus here. Yeah,
it's getting serious.
Getting a little bit too serious for a gaming podcast. Let's go back to the token for a second. I did want to ask, and I forgot to ask it earlier, so I'm going to ask it now because it just came up. Utility. We use this word utility in Web3, and it's been kind of overused, I think, perhaps to a certain degree. But for lack of a better word, what is the utility of the Echo token? What do you anticipate the Echo, other than obviously raising funds for you? What are the owners, the holders of the token, getting in return?
So I like.
Or what is it used for? Let's put it that way. What is it used for? I think maybe that's the better question. What is the utility?
Yeah, I like the word utility. I think all of our law firms like the word utility. It helps, right? I'm excited. Again, Midnight is a game publisher. Evergreen is the MMO. It's going to take a while for us to get to 26 games, and I think that is when the game has enough core loops, enough users to be fully fleshed out, and that's when the utility of the token is at its fullest. So there is a ramp up in our token where, like, the first 2 games, maybe there's not as much utility, and we kind of outlined in the white paper, like, these are the first 4 or 5 things that can be done. But like, as the MMO grows, the value goes up, the use cases go up. And we're also fairly opportunistic to look. We're looking at different models to see what people are doing now, because some things work, some things don't work. But in the beginning, for us, we are very heavy on cannibalizing our own revenue with that Premium Plus model, and users putting time, effort, bringing their networks in, bringing their friends in, and letting them monetize our games. Right. So Web3 users will be able to come in, monetize Web2 users that we have that built-in player base. And they get to cash out with our token. So that's the first thing that they get to do. Beyond that, they'll be able to start staking for games. When we do have our seasonal games, we have 5 games come out at a time, or eventually the baker's dozen, as you called it, for the year. People will pick them, and not every game is going to survive. We are very transparent that games in Midnight System might only last 3 or 6 months before they die. And how cool would it be if you picked one of the games that last for 2, 3, 10 years, right? And then you have a participation in that. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to actually use the token. We have our interoperability crafting system, which I think is fairly unique to Midnight, the way we're doing it. People, like we said, in the last 6 to 9 months, who's talked about interoperability, not a lot of people. So we built the system. I was heads down for 6 months, just writing this. This is how you do interoperability. We didn't put the full document into the white paper because everyone said, Steve, you're writing an academic paper for people that apes don't read is kind of the saying. They're just truncate it, put it in there.
Ouch.
And
ouch.
Yeah. Oh, it was painful. Because I wrote 60 pages over Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and then the team cut it down to half of that at 30, and then we put it online, and then the first 357 people to see it in an hour just went straight to the token page. And so that's our first audience, right? They're just there to make sure that we're not going to rug pull them, right? There's lockup in the tokens. There's a long-term treasury fund, and then every once in a while I get surprised. We're here at Dice, I mentioned, and some people have read it. They're asking me about the story. Oh, well, what are the bluff? Where did the bluff come from? I'm oh, well, let me tell you. So it's fun. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. No, got a lot going on for sure. That is a fact. So, and I'm kind of coming to the end of the podcast here, but we've covered a lot of ground, obviously, today.
Thanks for the questions. This has been great.
No, this has been really interesting, and I definitely went. Like I said, I wanted to have you on the pod. I saw Dean's piece in GameSpeed, and and I read it and I was like, wow, this is really interesting, and this is some pretty unique compared to what I typically see in the Web3 space.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it intrigued me. So we covered a lot of ground, but any kind of parting thoughts on Midnight? What are the things you're most excited by about what you're doing? What are the biggest opportunities you think for Midnight and Evergreen that are untapped at the moment by anybody else?
Yeah, so I think a couple different things. So the uniqueness of Midnight, right? I like the term category leader for premium AA games in Web3. We're hitting that pretty hard. Our interoperability crafting systems is fairly unique in the way that users can come in and actually get payouts. Right? It's not hope. It's like Midnight knows how to make money. We're cannibalizing that money and we're giving it to the users. So I think that's pretty cool. The way that we came in and started this podcast, and we just talked about, there's a lot of noise, and how do we bring calmness to that? And I think there's something magical about the 11:59 p.m. right before midnight. There's a bit of calmness between those hours, and I'm hopeful that we can bring. I don't know. I think Web3 needs something between a Mr. Rogers and a Batman. I'm not saying that's us, but I think it's needed, and so that's what I'm hoping to see in the next year is calm voices will prevail in this space, and real businesses will emerge.
Interesting. Okay, I like that answer. It's a Goldilocks answer, It's the porridge is just right. So no, I appreciate that. Okay, well, I think that's a great place.
I also hope we make a bunch of money. I'm not about the money. Please don't think of me as some saint with the Goldilocks answer. We're here to run a business.
Business of games. Absolutely. Right. And obviously with your track record of selling gaming companies, that kind of goes without saying that there is a monetary component to it, and obviously investors and token holders should be excited by those prospects. Okay, and the final question that I ask all of our guests, this is new for 2024, but what 3 games are you playing or are most excited by at the moment?
That's a good one. I play Fortnite weekly with my brother, sister, and their kids, and my wife. So we play a lot of Fortnite. Just amazing what what a fun family-friendly game. Maybe it's unfair because my nephews are like 6 and 7, so they're playing on the Switch, and I've got my gaming computer, and I'm just like in parties with them, just knocking off 6-year-olds. I
should get my son to play you. So my son is 10, and he is. I'm proud dad here, but he is objectively a very, very good video game player in general, but Fortnite in particular.
That's the one. That's
he straight up wins games. Like every 4 games or so, he wins. Number 1. Yeah, I'm
okay.
shocked.
That's
so I've told him.
That's...
I've told him. I'm sorry to take over your question here, but I've told him. I said I would like to retire on your esports earnings, please. I'm done supporting you. It's your turn now. It's your turn. He's 10. Right. Yeah, he's 10. So, anyways, sorry. Keep going. Yeah, I love Fortnite.
No,
I suck at it, but my son is so good.
Have you got him into the Red Bull training camp for esports? I think there's
not yet. And here's the crazy thing: he only just started playing 2 months ago. So and he plays on his Switch. So he's underpowered compared to what he could be doing. So maybe I need to get him that big rig and the gaming setup.
It's like Rocky, right? Drago had all that cool equipment, but Rocky was chasing chickens, right? So your son is essentially chasing chickens right now.
That's right. It's going to, there it is. It's going to serve him well in life. Okay. Anyway, sorry to take over your question, but so Fortnite, great. 2 more.
Fortnite. I beat Baldur's Gate 3, as many people did.
100% of our listeners have mentioned Baldur's Gate 3.
It was good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And so my son was being born the next month after release. So I had to play the entire game before he was born because I knew I would have no time. And so we got that in. He's 5 months old now. He doesn't play Fortnite yet, but I'm looking forward to what he does.
You're never too young to start.
That's right. Star Trek Resurgence, what I mentioned, that's a great game. I enjoyed that one. But there was an indie game called Nobody Saves the World out of a small studio in Toronto, Canada. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's more of the type of games that we want to do. I have no affiliation with those guys, although they're looking for a publisher. It was a good game. Nobody Saves the World. It was fun. It was a fun little co-op game.
Fantastic. I think you gave us a bonus one there. I think that was 4. So thank you very much for that. That's the Baker's Dozen the baker's trio of games for the Navi Gaming podcast. Okay, well, this is a fantastic place to end on a fun note here. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. It was an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Anyways, cheers.
And a big thank you to all of our listeners. We'll be back next week with more interviews, more insights, and more analysis from the weird and wonderful world of Web3. Until next time, friends, stay crypto curious and feel free to send me questions, guest recommendations, and comments. My email is nico@navic.co.
If you enjoyed today's episode, whether on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, or give a 5-star review. And if you want to reach out or provide feedback, shoot us a note at podcast@navic.co or find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Plus, if you want to learn more about what Navic has to offer, make sure to check out our website, www.navic.co. There, you can sign up for the #1 games industry newsletter, Navic Digest, or contact us to learn about our wide-ranging consulting and advisory services. Again, that is www.navic.co. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.